Hey, Backlash is after WrestleMania again. Hooray! Also, that makes the whole, Backlash part of the name. Makes sense, Triple H, you're a genius. Despite WrestleMania 39 being mostly very good indeed, Backlash does seem like an appropriate name, what with Cody not winning and people being very cross about that, and also Vince lurking near creative like a testosteratu. What's going to go down at the premium live event? Well, here's just some wild guesses and hints. I'm Adam from WrestleTalk, and here are 9 booking pitches for Backlash 2023. Number 1, Brock squashes Cody. I am not necessarily suggesting that they do this, but fan outrage does play a big part in fans' support of a wrestler in the modern age of the sport. Following his shocking failure to finish his story at WrestleMania, Cody has been swiftly moved into a program with Brock Lesnar, who's going even further down the cowboy rabbit hole by adding a duster to his ensemble. He looks really cool. Because, adversity, and hell, even Cody's brother Dustin recently said he liked that WWE were making Cody earn it, so I guess if his family's on board, we probably should be too. While Brock swiftly squashing Cody would of course build that adversity as well as being a truly shocking result, it would make fans very, very cross indeed. Would that fury translate into a staunchly loyal fan support for an air quotes mistreated Cody Rhodes? Maybe. Personally, I'd like to see him get a big win over Brock, but I can't deny that I also like watching wrestling fans explode. Number 2, Cody squashes Brock. Lol. Okay, that level of squash, like a Kofi Brock level of squash, that's probably never going to happen, but an utterly convincing victory should not be out of the question for Cody. We don't want a single shred of doubt that Cody earned this victory and conquered the Conqueror using nothing but the radiating power of his neck tattoo alone. Parallels are there between Cody in 2023 and John Cena in 2012. Both suffered big Mania losses and both faced Brock Lesnar at the following pay-per-view. And what did Big Match John do? He won. Only difference being John had already won like 100 world titles by then and absolutely shouldn't have won. You could argue, on the other hand, that Cody needs this win as character is in a precarious position. And while Roman can waltz away until SummerSlam, Cody has to keep momentum going until then, and a Brock Lesnar squash is the way to get the Cody Express back on the road. Number 3, Jey Uso causes the Bloodline to lose. While we're currently stuck in an alternate dimension where Cody Rhodes isn't undisputed champion, we also haven't seen the Bloodline fall either. Yeah, it's been pretty much business as usual for the One since Mania, only difference being the Usos no longer have their tag titles. Despite things seemingly being all good for the Bloodline, there is clearly some dissension building between the Usos and Roman Reigns, something that's been teased on numerous occasions by the wise man Paul Heyman. And as much as the Bloodline story has been the greatest thing since the Brian Kendrick sliced bread, stuff really needs to start happening now. So let's see it. Let's see Jey Uso be the deciding factor in the Bloodline's loss to Riddle, Sami and KO at Backlash, and have there be actual repercussions. Whatever it is, just use Backlash as a catalyst to move away from the never-ending war with Sami and Kev. Number 4, Solo Sikoa turns on the Usos. As faithful servants as the Usos have been to Roman over his near 1,000-day reign, the Tribal Chief is more of a what have you done for me lately kind of guy, and at Mania the Usos failed, while Solo proved to be the primary reason that Roman is still the champ. Not only that, but Solo is the problem solver, and as alluded to on Raw, the one that is actually privy to Roman's plans, while the Usos are left out in the cold. While the 6-man tag match at Backlash might be the final straw, there's also the WrestleMania tag title rematch happening the week prior to Backlash, with a loss for Jimmy and Jay there, undoubtedly leaving their status in the Bloodline hanging by a thread. So if what we mentioned in the previous entry happens, and the Usos also end up being the reason the Bloodline lose at Backlash, there may be little other options. Solo will have to serve them up a 2-for-1 Samoan spike to the jugular. Number 5, Io Sky beats Bianca Belair. Come on, you cowards, do it. Yes, Bianca Belair is essentially unstoppable and on the verge of breaking Becky Lynch's Raw Women's title record. I know that, but come on, WWE, we're ready. We're ready for a change. Bianca quite simply can't keep batting every pesky challenger away without breaking a sweat. And besides, Io's amazing. Just think what a win would do for her. She could finally step out of Bayley's shadow and do what she couldn't, finally knock off the EST. It would be a major statement win. And besides, WrestleMania is over. You can feasibly pull the trigger now. Only problem being that the day of Backlash will see Bianca tie Becky Lynch's title record at 399 days, and I just can't see WWE not letting her break it because they just can't resist a record, can they? But fine, whatever, I'm a reasonable guy. I will happily accept it happening on the Raw after Backlash. Just give Io the title, maybe send Bianca away in the draft to freshen things up for this long stale title scene. Number 6, Damage Control splits up. Regardless of whether Io actually pulls off this impossible or not task and beats Belair, it looks almost certain the Damage Control are at the end of their road as a group, and that's a damn shame. Not them splitting up in of itself, but the lack of care any of us will have when that does happen. Upon their formation at SummerSlam 2022, the trio of Bayley, Io and Dakota Kai was an exciting sign of what was to come under Triple H's creative regime. Despite having some success with 2 separate tag title runs, the group were made to look like chumps far too often. Bayley in particular should have have won the Raw Women's title, yet she fell short to Bianca Belair in 3 straight pay-per-view matches. So with the damage done for Damage Control, Backlash should set the scene for their unraveling. We've already seen Bayley acting a wee bit jealous of Io since she became #1 contender, so how about Io gets to the brink of victory, only for Bayley to pull the ref out of the ring at the last second. Now what this means for Dakota, I'm not sure. Will she side with Io, as we'd assume, or will Bayley convince her to continue playing psychic? Either way, Backlash could see the trio finally control Alt-Deleted. Number 7, Bronson Reed beats Bobby Lashley. One of Triple H's last hires, for his credit card seemingly got frozen by Vince McMahon, Bronson Reed was brought back into WWE via an angle with the tried and true WWE gatekeeper The Miz. Yes, it was pretty unremarkable, especially after the lad beat Okada in New Japan. However, following a rather strange, definitely written by Vince promo in which he called Bobby his uncle, Reed has now finally got a program he can sink his teeth into with the Almighty. While WWE may feel like they owe Lashley a win after his lackluster WrestleMania, I think a win for Reed is more useful. Reed needs a statement win. They don't come much bigger than against Lashley, who very rarely loses these days. While Lashley could recover from a loss, even play it into a long-running frustration with the company's storyline, if WWE plans on making Reed into someone on the main roster, then he needs to stop just squishing Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler. Big wins need to come, maybe even big title wins, which leads us to number 8, Bronson Reed wins the US title. Reed's interjection during the match between US champion Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley looked to have saved the champion from an almost certain L when he was locked in the Hurt Lock. So how about, in order to prevent any interference next time, Adam Pearce just throws Reed into Lashley's rematch with Theory and makes it a triple threat. Before you know it, Theory's stuck in the middle of an extra meaty Subway sandwich with little prospect of retaining. And that's how it should be. As mentioned, if WWE want Reed to be a main roster mainstay, then eventually he needs to be challenging for and winning titles, with the US title being the natural first step. Theory as US champ has been fine and all, but in comparison to Gunther's IC title run, which never gets boring, Theory seems a little bit stale at the minute. While a change to SmackDown could help, I think allowing him to step away from the US title and just do, I don't know, anything else would help all parties. Number 9, Trish Stratus beats Lita. If you've been in tune the past few months, then Trish Stratus' heel turn on Raw last week would have been a massive surprise. Becky versus Trish at SummerSlam has seemingly been in the books for quite a bit. However, I think knowing that, most of us assumed Trish's turn wouldn't be happening anytime soon, but here we are with 4 months of WWE programming left to fill. So what is WWE's answer to this conundrum? I mean, the obvious answer is just to have the match sooner, say in Saudi for Night of Champions or Money in the Bank in London. Regardless, when the grudge match with Lynch ultimately happens, one thing that must be resolved first is Trish's attack on Lita. During her first heel promo in almost 2 decades, Trish would drop the bombshell that nobody saw it coming, that it was her, Austin, it was her all along. So hopefully Lita will re-emerge from that local medical facility and gain a modicum of revenge for herself and Lynch. Not only that, but Lita could quite rightly have reason to be a bit miffed about some of Trish's comments in her promo on Raw, specifically those regarding her role in turning women's wrestling from a joke in WWE into something serious. While Trish's heelness would see her soak up all the credit for the 2000s, Lita was most certainly just as instrumental during this time. Trish and Lita have been synonymous for years, so how about a Backlash? The debate gets put to rest and Trish finally puts down her old rival one more time. And that's our list. What would you like to see happen at Backlash this year? Let us know in the comments, and also check out last week's list that we did, pitching the fantasy draft for this year. Here's a little bit of that now. Number 1, the Judgment Day, SmackDown. If you really want to distinguish Raw and SmackDown as separate brands and actually make the draft, matter, then the whole constant crossover thing needs to stop. Despite currently all being